Okay, I hope this is working. I did a little test earlier, so it should be. I was going to wait for people to join, but actually what I'm going to do is just go ahead and start because I know lots of you can't make it live or will be joining kind of halfway through. So yeah, it's no drama either way. I want to start off with housekeeping. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to just comment whenever you want to. Comment and say hello, say you're here and whatever. But what I'll do is with some of the questions, I will answer straight away if it is kind of relevant and isn't going to break the flow of things. For some of them, I'll just put a pin in them and answer them at the Q&A at the end. And I don't know if I've actually put time in for a Q&A, but in my head I have, if that makes sense. Sorry, I keep moving between them. I'm going to go back to the slides and stay there. So it's going to last around an hour and a half. It won't be any longer than that. Yes, might be a little bit less. And then if you have to leave at any point, then please just leave. Don't feel like you have to stay. It doesn't matter because this, for me, this is serving as just me recording a helpful training, which I will then repurpose afterwards. I'll set it afterwards and I'll also send it to you. I said 48 hours just because tomorrow is super hectic. So I didn't want to put the pressure on myself to send it tomorrow in case I had to edit it. So you'll have it by the end of the week, basically, with these slides for you to download. So you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. Some people really like taking their own notes. The other thing to remember is that this Facebook group will be here until the end of July. So if you have any questions about the training, if you just have any questions about Pinterest, you can use this group to access me, basically, until the end of the month when I'll close it. What else? Is there anything else? Oh, yeah, there's no sales pitch at the end or at the beginning or at any point throughout the training. It's just going to be training. But you can get there's two things that you can get. I do a Pinterest free challenge. So if you, after this, wanted to go back to basics and learn a little bit more about that, then you can sign up for the free challenge. It's just 3 days over email. And you can also get my Pinterest course for £49 if you want. It's normally 78, but anybody that does live training can have it for £49. And I'll send that in the post-training email with your slides and replay, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Okay, so let's get started. Actually, I'm just going to quickly go back. Hi, Claire. How are you? Hello, Hannah. I've just done some admin, which I'm not going to go back over again, but just to say, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them throughout the training, just in the comments. And I'll either answer them during or I'll save them to the end. It kind of depends if I want to keep the flow of things going. And I'm very easily distracted. Also, my bedtime is normally 9 p.m. So, so my brain will be fuzzled soon. And if you have to leave at any point, please just, leave. You can, because I will send you all of this afterwards. So you won't miss out on anything. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, things that I want you to know before we start. With Pinterest, you obviously have a free account, but I recommend that you switch to a business account as soon as you can. It's free. It's a little bit like with Instagram. Once you switch to a business account, you can switch back at any time, but it just means that you get access to analytics. You'll get access to rich pins, which is important, things like that. So if you don't already have that, then just make a note to do that. If you use wordpress.com switch because yeah, you can't do anything with WordPress.com. And Tailwind is my preference for scheduling. So that's what I'm talking about today, Tailwind. And there will also be affiliate code for free month. Actually, I don't even think it's within the training, but it'll be when I send you all of your details, like the slide and the replay of this training. I used to use something called Board Booster, but actually last year when Pinterest were really tightening up on their scheduling tools and third-party apps, they made everybody go through quite a rigorous testing process. And as part of that, Board Booster kept failing, and it wasn't because they were shady or anything, but there's certain things that Pinterest wanted to maintain. Similar to Instagram and Facebook, they want to maintain a certain level of control. They don't want it to be super easy for people to scam the system, I guess. Anyway, Tailwind are a preferred partner, or like an official partner of Pinterest. So that's the reason that I use them over some of the other scheduling tools that are out there, like Buffer or CoSchedule, I think. Who else? SmartIQ, perhaps, Hootsuite. There are lots of people, but Tailwind is my preference, and it's really the only one that I ever talk about when it comes to Pinterest strategy. And again, there's no sales pitch within this training, but in your replay, I'll give you a code to buy my full Pinterest course. I've said £50, not it's £49 if you want. I guess I should say at this point, is there any questions? But I really don't know. I haven't really said much, so I don't know where there would be. Okay. What I'm going to take you through now is, over the next hour and a half, I'm going to give you an introduction to Tailwind. And that is essentially going to be me sharing my screen and talking you through what happens within Tailwind. Some of the things you might know already, some of the things you might not know, but it's good to start with the basics. I'm then going to go into exactly how to schedule pins, and this is something that I do once a month. It's part of my strategy, and it's a really sneaky little hack that people don't seem to know, but it saves me just hours. I remember when I first started scheduling pins in Tailwind, oh my goodness, it felt so long, and I was spending probably an hour and a half longer than I do now. So I'm going to show you that. And then I'm going to talk you through finding and joining group boards, because I think this can feel like a complete mystery sometimes. It's not necessarily super intuitive to be able to find group boards, and there really isn't that many tools to find them. But I'm going to show you a couple of my 2 or 3 of my tactics when it comes to finding and joining group boards. Then I'm going to talk you through Tailwind Tribes. I have to apologize for the name. Tribes is inappropriate, I think, but that's what they're called. They're similar to group boards, if you don't know, and I'll talk you through them because I actually think I like tribes more than I like group boards. Yeah, I do. I drive more traffic that way, and they're easier to use. Lastly, we'll just run over kind of the takeaways from the training, the things that, if there's one thing that I want you to take away from the training, and I'll give you exactly what I do every week, every month, and every quarter, which make up the half an hour that I spend on Pinterest each month. So, how does that sound? Before we get started though, I just want to briefly talk about pins, because they are king or queen or whatever. When people say content is king, content is king, content is king, that's what pins are. And often and I'm sure you've seen this as well when you've been browsing Pinterest. Often people forget that, and just create really ugly pins. Um, I'm just going to take a sip of my drink, sorry. But having, having visually appealing pins is really, if you don't have that, then it doesn't matter how great your strategy is, it's never going to stick. It's not very difficult to create a visually appealing pins. That's the good news. These are a couple of mine that have done really well recently. And I've picked these two just because, I mean, they're kind of same, but different. But, oh, whoops. Really, what all of them have in common is that they're vertical, although you can now pin square pins, but vertical are still the best. Clear, as in not too busy. Typography, because if it's just an image, I mean, there is a place for image pins that don't have any typography for sure, but I just, they have to be click worthy, don't they? And if you don't immediately know what a pin is about, then you're less likely to click on it. So I like to mix it up with more imagey and like lots more negative space, and then things like this, which kind of do what they say on the tin. They've got quite a lot of typography. And, with a call to action and not much else really. So these two are pretty wordy, if I'm honest, and they're not they weren't my favorite to create, but they've done pretty well. This one, I think, because you don't even need to read this bit at the bottom, because you can just look at these two and then you're like, great, okay, I want it or I don't want it. And then this one, people seem to like multiple pictures. So any picture where I have, any pin where I have collages tend to do really well. Yeah. So always think about your pins being the kind of the heart of everything you do. So the next thing I want to do is, and I'm hoping, actually, when I'm talking through this stuff, please do comment if I'm talking about something and I'm not on the screen that I say I am. That would be super helpful. So, Tailwind. I'm just going to briefly run you through these notes and then I'm going to literally dive in. So I've already talked about Tailwind being a recognized pin partner. I mean, that's one of the many benefits of using Tailwind, but for me, I just feel safe using them because I had a whole Pinterest strategy set up on Board Booster. I've been using Board Booster for like 3 years. I absolutely loved it. And then one day I got an email along with everybody else that used Board Booster saying we're closing down. And I was like, oh, all this hard work that I put into Board Booster. And yeah, and I had to just start again with Tailwind. So I've only been using Tailwind for about 6 months, I think, maybe a bit longer. But I've managed to replicate the success I was having with Board Booster fairly quickly. Actually, it's easier to use than Board Booster was, in that it's much more intuitive. So the other thing is that there's a fair few amazing tools within Tailwind that I really love. So scheduling, I mean, that's basic. If it doesn't have scheduling, it's not really, I don't really know what the point of it is. But I like, there's kind of tools within the scheduling that I like, and I'll show you those. I quite like the Smart Loop function, which is similar-ish to Board Booster had something called looping, which was amazing. Now, not everyone has Smart Loop, so I have extra privileges in Tailwind and Pinterest. So if I talk about something that you don't end up having, in fact, none of these things, apart from maybe Smart Loop, are limited. But yeah, tribes are amazing. There's something that I talked about at the start. The tribe function is so good. It's so much better than group boards. Well, I'm so sorry, I can't stop yawning. This always happens when I have to speak for extended periods of time. I start yawning. Tribes are, yeah, well, I'll get into tribes. They're brilliant. I just really love them. And the other thing that Tailwind has, which I find super helpful, is the board lists. So you can group together your boards by kind of subgenre. So you don't have to pin to one board at a time. It's super time saving. You can do that with your group boards and your own boards. And their analytics are pretty good. I don't really use them. I like Pinterest's own analytics. They're my favorite. So let's dive in and have a look at Pinterest. I'm just going to quickly jump back and just check everyone's okay, cool. So this is what Pinterest looks like. This is the dashboard. And what you'll have on the side, it always says the last 7 days, but you can obviously change that. You can see your most repin pins, you can see all your recent pins, you can see your follower total, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I've got one more follower versus average. And then there's tribes. We won't talk about that just yet, but tribes are amazing. And then the main thing that you're probably going to be doing, insights is analytics. I should have called it insights instead of analytics. I don't tend to use this all that much, but it is good. It is good. So the main thing you're going to be using is the publisher. And this is where you save your boards initially in draft, or you can just immediately go and schedule them. This is where your scheduled pins live. I click in that. It's quite slow. That's the only thing I would say. I find Tailwind very slow. So this is where all of your scheduled pins live, just on the side here. And you can, I've got one failed pin. You can dig into them a little bit. You can also see your published pins, which is where you can repin. You can repin old pins, which can sometimes be really helpful. And the smart loop function, which I will talk about briefly. Yeah, so it says new. I think everybody's got it now, but yeah. This is where you can see your published pins in more detail. You can also get to it up here. Here is where your schedule is. So this is where you'll start off with Tailwind. And actually, when you first log into Tailwind, when you set up your account, there'll be this section over here where it says getting started. And there'll be, here we go. It will tell you to do certain things, and it will keep prompting you to do them. So it's very difficult to miss out a step with Tailwind. It's something that I really like. So what they do is they start you off with a smart schedule based on when your audience is most engaged. And they will keep suggesting. So they're suggesting more time slots for me, which why not? I'll just add that one and that one and that one. So the green time slots are ones that you've scheduled. These are the light green ones are kind of smart scheduled, and these ones are ones that you've put in yourself. These red ones are smart loop slots, which means that if you ever shuffle any of your pins, which you will do, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute and the reason why you would do that, these ones won't get shuffled because they're set times. So you have a whole different schedule for smart loops. Yeah, you can see it just here. I only have one active loop. And I would suggest you don't go wild on loops. Just pick one for your kind of cornerstone content. You could also recreate your schedule. So the reason you might want to do that is if you have something that isn't evergreen, you could recreate the schedule and then have it just for a certain period of time, or you could have it just for a particular topic. So the things that I share are low impact living, veganism, and blogging tips, and travel sometimes as well. So I could have a separate queue for all of them, because perhaps my audience for travel is different, my audience for low impact living, and different again to my audience for blogging tips. You could have audiences in different time zones, so that might be why you'd want to recreate your schedule. So you can do really, really clever things with it. But what I would say is, when you get started with Tailwind, keep it super simple and then add to it. So as you can see, I pin a lot, but you don't have to pin this much. You could pin far less than this and still see results. Then board lists. Oh, I love board lists so much. So these are all of my boards chunked into lists. So I've got a whole heap of podcast boards. Now, you can see the difference between a group board and your own board just by the colour. So group boards are green, and also they have, can you see the three little people there? Whereas your own boards will just be blue and they won't have any collaborators. And worth noting that this one, group board, Pinterest for bloggers, this one is my own group board, but it's still green. So you just have to remember, if you set up group boards, to name them in a way that makes you immediately remember that's your group board that you've set up. And the reason that I've set these up is just so that I can schedule one pin to multiple boards at the same time. It's just a time-saving thing. It's really, really helpful. It's great for productivity. I need to redo these, I think. Yes, I do. But that's fine. We can do that another time. And there's also the option to pin from Instagram. But again, this is beta, so I don't know if everyone has this. I don't really do this all that much. But you can. The thing with this is that you would have to change the caption. It's not just as easy as pinning. So for some of them, I would repin. This one did so well on Instagram that I knew it would do pretty well on Pinterest, because it's a letterboard pregnancy announcement, and they do pretty well on Pinterest. So yeah, I would have a play about with this. And there's also, I have an IFTT recipe set up. I don't know if you've heard of IFTT. It's if this, then that. I'll just put it in here. If this, then that. Yeah. And that schedules all my Pinterest, all my Instagrams to a separate Pinterest board. There's loads and loads of different recipes that you can do on IFTT. It's amazing. Yeah, but cool. So that's Tailwind. Let's get into scheduling. So the first thing that you're going to need is Pinterest. Not sure why I didn't have Pinterest open. Now I'm going to do some audience participation. If nobody answers, that's okay. I'll just carry on. But what are your keywords, Hannah and Claire? So the sort of things that that you're pinning, what keywords would people be searching for to find your pins? This is quite a good test of whether anybody's listening. Not that you have to be listening, to be fair. Right, well, I'm going to get started with one of mine, which is low impact living. And I have all sorts of hacks for this I think in the free challenge even. Yes, I'm pretty sure I do. or if not, then the course, I go into this in much more detail. So you can see all at the top here, there's loads of different keywords that relate to this. And you can also see some down here. So I think, how about low impact bathroom? I don't really like that. Zero waste cleaning. That's what someone would be searching for, I think. Yeah, there we go. Lots and lots and lots and lots of posts about plastic-free cleaning, zero waste cleaning, blah, blah, blah. Now this is, so when I go into schedule pins, this is the exact thing that I do, and it takes me 10 minutes. So I pick a few of my keywords. I normally know roughly what's doing well for me that month, or roughly what boards need to be topped up, or, you know, whatever. So I have in mind, let's say, 3 to 5 keywords that I want to search for and boards to fill up. And literally, this is all I do. So I scan through the things that I want to pin. That one looks good. I press this little button, which is the Tailwind button. And then you'll get this big screen and the option to schedule now or save for later. Now you don't need to do either of those things. All you need to do is put this down here and then just carry on. I like the look of that. And then when you press something else, what will happen is the new one just pops up. And then this one looks good. And you can just keep doing this. These are all super useful posts. Oh, I love that. But look at that. I have to remember that I'm actually doing a training now and not just having lots of fun on Pinterest. So when you've filled up, say, 50, then you don't even need to save for later. You can just go to your drafts and all of those pins that you just saved will be in here. So the reason that I do it this way in chunks is because these are all the same topic. I'm just going to make sure that they've all got descriptions because that's important. And then instead of individually scheduling, you can just add board to all of these. So obviously with this, zero waste bathroom, no impact. This is not a good example because I actually don't have any lists for zero waste. I'm not really sure why. I need to. You may have already pinned from this page on one of your selected. Oh yeah, I have, because I've already done this today. And that's all you do. You just click share, although annoyingly, let me stretch this out. There we go. That's better. Sometimes this is a bit painful. And then you just schedule all of those. You should normally see a schedule underneath here, but it's just having a bit of a, oh, there it is, there it is. Just at the bottom. But it's not going to let me do it because I've already saved them. So while that's just losing its mind. So that's what you do. And then you can either go on to a completely different keyword, blogging tip. Ah, hi. I suppose things like London restaurants. Yes. Let's type in London. Ooh. Yes, so you're going to get all of these under London restaurants. And then also all of these related keywords which this is basically keyword planning right up here. Look at this. So that's what you would do, is just save until your schedule is full up. Oh, this one is being so painful. Yeah, so once you scheduled them, what you'll see is that it will schedule them basically chronologically. So you'll have absolutely hundreds of the same pin going out to various boards over a period of days. That you don't really want that. You want it to be all mixed up. So you just press shuffle queue. And I tend to go through and do that exercise for, like I say, 3 to 5 different keywords, and then I shuffle at the end, and that's me done. Honestly, 10 minutes, 15 tops. So, any questions about scheduling? It's kind of annoying how this screen share works, so I do apologise. Let's talk about group boards. What do you think? So group boards are key to your strategy. Group boards can be, there can be 2 people in the group board, or there can be hundreds and thousands of people in the group board. It'll be set up by 1, maybe 2 people with collaborators, and you can be invited to be a collaborator. Now, every group board has a completely different set of rules, a different way to join them. Some of them are closed, some of them only accept certain members, blah, blah, blah. The list is endless. But ultimately, most of them will be contactable via email, or they'll, as opposed to being asked via Pinterest, if that makes sense. So let's find a group board in the way that I like to find group boards, which is, again, going back to your keywords. So Claire, so for your London restaurants, let's search again for London restaurants. Instead of looking for pins, go to people. It's not the best because London restaurants, let's say unique. Because what we want to find is people who blog about, no, this isn't very helpful, who blog about London. Oh. Okay, well, that didn't really work. Let's go to this one then. This is probably going to be a trap. Oh yeah, it's Sue's Luxury Economist. But let's just go to her profile, then look at boards. If you scroll down to the bottom, I'm hoping that she does have this, you will be able to see at the bottom of her main boards all of the group boards that she's part of. So they start here, and you can see that because, see that circle, that means it's a group board. You can also see because it's suddenly got from 200 pins to 70,000 pins. So this is one of the best ways I find group boards. It's so much easier than the other way I'm going to show you. I mean, with this particular one, it's actually not that easy because she writes about travel, so we're going to have to look a little bit. Oh, okay, the Instagrammer's Guide to London, or the Instagrammer's Travel Guide. Well, that's not very helpful, actually. But perhaps we can find, oh, I know, Lady in London. Let's see if she's here. So group boards. She has got a lot of group boards that are kind of bloggers group boards, but these can be really helpful. Blogging group boards are, as in blog group boards that are set up by bloggers for bloggers, are normally pretty good for driving traffic. They can be a bit sketchy, like anything where bloggers are involved, but I have generally found them to be quite helpful. So let's click into this one and see if they're accepting people. Yes. Follow and message Sunny in London for an invitation. Okay, so this person wants you to follow them and then message them. Sunny in London is right there. And that's it. You just message them and ask. So that's one way of finding group boards. That's the way that I tend to. Let me show you. This is probably going to be easier if I show you. Yeah, let's do blogging tips. Twins mummy. Let's pick people. And then just have a look at Melissa Griffin. She is all about blogging tips. And I'm going to look at her boards and go right to the bottom until I find, there we go. Blogging pro tips, young creative bloggers, grow your blog. So all of these are boards that I could request to join and probably will. Now, Melissa Griffin is actually a total Pinterest pro, so I would back her 100% in joining the right group boards. Okay, there you go. Not currently accepting new contributors. Some of them you will find that. Invitations currently closed. Oh, sad times. Doesn't normally happen quite so often. This one is also not accepting. Wow. Picking all the great examples here. Contributors, please only pin 5 pins, blah, 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 blah. It's weird that it doesn't say. It doesn't have any way to. Oh well. She's obviously part of some like super exclusive ones. To join, finally. This is what I'm more used to. To join, please email this person with your Pinterest account URL and associated email address. So I have a template that is just an email template so that I can quickly send off emails, because pretty much everyone asks for this information. They'll ask for your Pinterest account URL, your email address, and then, you know, just, hi, can I join this particular board? It just saves me a lot of time. Cool, so that is group boards. I guess the last thing I want to show you here is something called Pin Groupie. So Pin Groupie is a really ugly looking website which has all of the group boards on Pinterest categorized. So at the top you'll need to put your niche or keyword. Again, let's go for London restaurants. Can't type today. Oh, nothing found. Wow, okay. Maybe you should start one, Claire. Blogging tips. Category education. It's actually changed recently and I really don't like it. It used to come up with a big, like, it was like a big table so that you could quickly see, you could scroll down and quickly see how many collaborators were in it, how many pins, how many followers, etc., etc. But now it looks like this, and it's really painful. Although I guess you get more qualitative, more detailed information, but I find it just a real faff. So I don't spend a lot of time on Pingroupy. But you know, the first one it's come up with has given me something that seems to be quite helpful. Yeah. Oh yeah, brilliant. Also, so this is what I have on my group boards. And it's a new thing that Pinterest have brought in where you can just press request to join. So let's just request to join that way. It's so much better. Although this is weird because look, blogging tips for beginners, curly hair mistakes you might be making. You know, Pingroupy is just full of junk as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's something that you can, another way that you can find group boards, and that's the most kind of standard way you would find them. Back to the, yes, I've gone over that. Tribes. Again, I have to apologize for the name, but I'm sorry for the name. That's all I can say, really. Tribes are so much easier than group boards. So tribes are they are specific to Tailwind. They've been around for quite a while, but I didn't use them because I used this other scheduling tool that I mentioned called Board Booster. And let's just mark all these as red. Yep. And because I wasn't an early adopter of it, I'm super into it now, and also really kicking myself because honestly, it's brilliant. They're so brilliant. So you can create your own tribe, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that straight off because it's a bit of a hassle, not really worth it. The other thing to note is that with tribes, you have a limit. So you can only join 5 tribes, and you only have a monthly submission of 30 pins to all of your tribes. That's not a lot. And then after that, you have to, oh, this is so annoying. You have to pay extra. And I think it's quite expensive, the amount that they ask you to pay for the power ups. And this is on top of how much you're paying for Tailwind. So I pay, it works out to be about £7 a month for Tailwind. So to have this on top, I think is kind of mad. I mean, I don't think anyone would go up to this unless you were like a super pro blogger. But yeah, I think you'd probably just go for the £59 a year jobby. But honestly, I really don't think it's worth it, especially if you've got quite a tight niche, because just three different tribes will be enough. So how it works, it's very similar to group boards in that everybody's got their own rules. So they'll put them here. And pretty much they're the same shit, different tribes. So it'll just say quality blogging pins, blah, 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 no duplicates, make sure you share, maximum of 5 pins per day. Ollie? Oh, sorry, I thought my husband was going down. And then the whole thing with tribes is that unlike group boards, so even if a group board says you have to share one. There's no, like, so even if a group board says for every pin that you share, you have to share somebody else's, there's nothing policing that. Whereas with a tribe, you have this little thing at the top where it says you've shared 29. So this is how many pins I've added to this one this month, 29 pins. And you can see how many you shared. You shared 30, I've shared 33. And it does this really clever thing now where you have weekly highlights. So you can see who's had the most reshared content. So it's like another way of getting your pins seen by more people. I hate how slow Tailwind is. That is the massive downside to Tailwind. I mean, maybe it's not slow for other people, but it always really is for me. So literally what you would do is when you go into your, say we had some pins in draft. What I would do, let's just pick an old one. I'm actually not going to do this because you only get a certain amount of monthly submissions, but let's just pick one from my website. Let's pick this SEO tips one, which I know I've shared to a tribe before because it's an old one. Not even sure what's happening here. This is a bit painful, isn't it? Oh yeah, there we go. Add to tribes. And you can add to however many you want. I know that I can only add to this promote your blog and bloggers chalkboard because they are the ones related to the niche that this pin is in, which is kind of blogging tips. Dream Pin Go is about travel and Green Living is about sustainability. So I would only pin it here. And once you add this to your two tribes, you then need to share at least one pin back. So let's say we've added it to the tribe. We'll go to those tribes and I'll show you how to share something. You'll find that sometimes if you have a few tribes within the same niche, you'll see the same pins come up across them, which is a bit annoying, but you can normally find, and also this particular tribe that I'm part of, Bloggers Chalkboard, is full of quite a lot of crap as well. So sometimes you do have to search, but don't just pin rubbish just so that you've pinned something. Do be picky. This one looks quite useful. So you can either just schedule it straight away into your board, or you could use an interval if you really want to, but yeah, that's basically all I do. And then you can just double check. You've shared 34, you've added 29, so that's all good. So, any questions about tribes? Oh, I didn't tell you how to find a tribe. That would be helpful. It's similar to finding a group board. It's a bit painful. This is the only way you can find tribes as well. You can't find them on a third-party app. You can't find them in Pinterest because it's specifically it's a Tailwind functionality, Tailwind specific functionality. So you can either use the search function up here. So let's see if we can get some London restaurants for Claire. London travels and recommendations. Well, there we go. This one looks like it might be good, but unfortunately, so there's only 4 members, which means that it's probably not going to be super active. And the activity level, you want it to be pretty high because that means that people are going in and sharing every day. If it's down here, then it probably means that someone set it up and nobody pins to it. I mean, if there's 4 people, you're really not going to get that much juice from it. We'll just preview it so you can see. Although actually, having said that, look at this one. That's viral. It's not that bad. This is destination specific and focuses on London, UK. Posts about traveling to London, living in London, blah, blah, blah. It is public. Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing going on in here. There's like 3 pins, although I do know this person. And if you wanted to join, you literally just click join now. That's all you do. It's as simple as that. You don't have to send emails. It's really simple. And some of them, like some people have more strict rules than others. So you can, if you set up your own tribe in Pinterest, in Tailwind, you'll see that sometimes you can essentially just accept anyone that wants to, anyone that requests. Yeah, find lots of tribes in here. And with tribes, because I only have a maximum of 5 that I'm allowed, because I don't want to pay for any more, probably every month I just have a quick look over them and just use the insights to see if they're worth it. And then I just leave and join a different one. Because look at that, that's massive. And yeah, like that reach is massive. So yeah, this one I need to leave really because it's a bit pointless. This one is really small, but actually the reshares are quite high because it's really niche. And this one, I think I'm going to leave that one. I don't know. Haven't decided. Actually, technically on paper, I should stay with that one. Yeah. Anyway, that is tribes. Okay. Wow, I'm totally whizzing through this a bit quicker than I wanted to. Let me just go back and check that yeah, goodness. Didn't even need an hour and a half. Okay, so I genuinely spend half an hour a month to probably create 3 times the amount of traffic than I would otherwise. I know when I haven't been focusing on Pinterest, if I have a month, I mean, this very rarely happens, but when I was in between Board Booster and Tailwind, I really saw a massive drop in traffic because I had probably 3 months where I was setting things up in Tailwind. I didn't have a lot of time. I was really annoyed that I didn't have Board Booster. And while I was setting things up again and sorting a schedule out, I wasn't really properly focusing for, at least 6 weeks, which kind of led to a 3-month lag in proper pinning. And my traffic just dropped. And I always say 3 times the amount of traffic because it just always seems to work that way for me. the more I put into Pinterest, the like you do see it quite quickly. And I don't know if it's something to do with the fact that it seems to work on a 3-month cycle. That's what I always find. It takes about 3 months for me to see any changes. So if, for example, today I decided I was going to ditch all my boards and start again, I would start to see the results in 3 months. That is, I mean, maybe that's psychological and it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy, but that's always, and whenever I've worked with other people on their Pinterest, that's always roughly been what happens. But you can do it quicker, of course, but yeah. So spending 30 minutes a day should increase your traffic significantly. 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes a month. And I say this this will be 30 minutes a month consistently after you've got your strategy sorted. 30 minutes a month straight from the get-go, if you've never spent any time strategizing, you're not gonna see a massive increase straight away. But once you've got into things, you've got your board sorted, you are following people that within your niche, and you're joining group boards regularly. Once you start doing that, then and also to go back to the very beginning, once you have got a bit of a strategy for your pins as well, because I'll go into it in a minute with my monthly schedule, but since I started revisiting things and redesigning pins, relooking at my boards every quarter, I now and I stick to those 3 kind of pin templates that I'll produce every single quarter. I spend a lot less time, but I'm constantly kind of reanalyzing, if that makes sense. So within my monthly schedule, at the very beginning of the month, normally the 2nd, because on the 1st of every month I do my accounts. So to be specific, on the 2nd, I'll do a quick check of Tailwind. I'll just look at my smart schedule. I'll look at if there's any suggested times, if I want to increase, if I want to decrease, blah, blah, blah. And then I will fill it up with lots and lots of pins. That takes me about 10 minutes, and that's just using exactly the method that I showed you. Then weekly, I pin new blog posts to tribes, group boards, and my own boards using my board lists. So that probably takes about 15 minutes. That includes creating pins. So at the moment, because I'm in season with the podcast, I have more pins than I normally would, because I only publish a blog post once a week. But at the moment, I've got 2 blog posts. I've got my podcast blog post on a Monday, and then my standard blog post on a Wednesday. And for every post, I create 3 different pins. And then at the end of the month, I tend to have a quick look over my group boards and see if I need to join any new ones. And actually, I tend not to even really look actually at my current group boards. No, I don't. I do that quarterly. I just try and have a quick look at people within my niche and see if there's any new group boards that I can join. And I do that using the method that I showed you, plus sending out emails, just the canned email that I've already got in my drafts, and I just quickly send an email to them. Or the new request to join feature is great, actually. And then quarterly, this is where I review. So I get into Pinterest analytics. I don't use Tailwind, I use Pinterest analytics specifically. And that's why you need a business account, because then you get the analytics, which are amazing. So that's what I do quarterly. And that's when I'll have a look at which pins are working, which pin designs are specifically working for me, and have a real analytical look at why I think they're working. It's when I'll look at group boards that are working, group boards that aren't. So I might leave group boards. I tend to do that fairly regularly. And I might tidy up my own boards. There might be a board that just isn't doing anything. So what's the point in having it? Because it's all adding to your to-do list. And I'm a big believer in not necessarily having 50 boards because people say 50 is the optimum. I would rather have 25 boards that are working for me and that make sense to my audience than have 50 boards filled up just for the sake of it. But some people believe different. So that's my schedule. I do think it's really doable. Before we go into takeaway lessons, let's have a look at your questions, because I had actually Hannah filled out the survey but didn't have any questions, but I might just have a quick look and see if anyone else has added them. And Claire, you had some questions that you emailed over to me. No, I don't want slides. I want forms. Oh, it was only Hannah. Never mind. Yes, Claire, if you're still there, could you please repeat your questions? I don't know if you are still there, so I'm sorry. I think one of the questions that you'd asked was around lots of like ratios, perfect ratios. Oh, excuse me. I told you 9 p.m. was my bedtime. There were lots of like perfect ratios that people say. So, you know, 1 of yours to 3 of other people's. And I think, if I'm honest, I don't think it matters, because naturally you'll pin a lot more of other people's than you will of your own. So I wouldn't even worry about it. But make sure, if you want to see results, if you want to see traffic being driven to your blog, it's about making sure that you're pinning stuff from your own blog. So if you only publish 1 blog post a month, it doesn't even matter, as long as you're pinning, I don't know, 10 different pins for that post. Does that make sense? And then on top of that, supplementing that with 50 of other people's. So in my example that I use, I post once a week, or let's say twice a week, and 3 times for each. So that's 6 times 4. So that's what, 24. Is that 24? Yeah. So that's, yeah, that is 24. I just had to check my mental maths. So that is how many times I pin, because I do 3 different pins per post. I post twice a week. Oh no, it's 8 times 4. Anyway, yeah, so that's how many I post, and then I probably pin at least 3 times that amount of other people's as well. In my queue, I think I've got, so I post 20 times a day probably, and I've got 1,200 I think in my schedule, and that's going up until, I don't know, August. Something to note on scheduling as well is that I really don't recommend that you schedule too far in advance. It's quite, I mean, I think a month to 3 months max. Because it's so hard to affect things if you're scheduling way in advance. And I know people who have scheduled like 6 months in advance. That's a really good thing if you know that you literally are not going to have time to update every month, but I prefer to keep it a bit more reactive personally. I think that was all the Q&As, and actually I had one on Instagram. I have no, let's see. Never mind. I think the main thing that people want to know is how can Pinterest genuinely be completely automated? And hopefully I've explained that. So let's look at some of the takeaway lessons. So I think Pinterest is really simple when you've got a clear strategy and you use Tailwind like a fiend. When I say like a fiend, I don't mean being on it all the time. I just mean using it really productively and fiendishly. Use the functions, use the brilliant functions like tribes and scheduling as much as possible. Join new group boards regularly and leave them regularly as well if you need to. Utilize tribes, they work, and stay on the free plan. I really don't think you would need to pay for power-ups. Automate as much as you can, and when I say automate, I mean having canned responses for your group board emails, having pin descriptions already kind of pre-written so that you just tweak them. That's a really handy thing to do, and I talk about it. I think I talk about that in the course, but basically all I mean by that is for every pin that you pin, you should have certain things. So as part of making sure that your pin is click worthy, it should have a click worthy pin description. If you know anything about SEO, you know that it works the same for a blog post in Google. So your meta description should be click worthy. It should explain what the blog post is about in normal language, not in weird clickbaity language. And the person who is looking at it should clearly be able to see, oh, great, this is exactly what I need. I'm going to click straight through. It's the same for Pinterest because Pinterest is a search engine. So automating that, I just have quite a standard formula for my pin descriptions, and then I just change the kind of first part describing the particular post. Having pin templates. I only have 3 pin templates every quarter, and I do it all in Canva. Let me write this down. I love Canva. I think it's amazing. It's free. I'm not an affiliate. I don't think they have an affiliate program. I just really, really, really rate them. I think I've got a video about that as well, so I can perhaps send that to you. It's just amazing. It's so, so good. It's really simple and intuitive and makes graphic design just seem fun and easy. And the other thing that you can do in Canva is you can sign up for a free trial of their professional package, which means that you can build a brand kit, which when you go back down to the free plan is all saved. So you have your own fonts, your own colors. It makes life so much easier. So that's what I did. I've never paid for the pro version. I just did the free month. And my brand kit is still saved in there. And lastly, Smartloop. Oh, I didn't show you Smartloop actually. It's good, but it's not a huge part of my strategy. I'm still on the fence about Smartloop. It's not as good as Board Booster, and I'm not really seeing amazing results from it. However, I'm going to show you it now so that you at least know what it's about. So Smart Loop, which is in Publisher. I mean, I just hate how it looks also. So I don't really have many. This is another one where you have to remove boards from Smart Loop pins. Perfect. This is another one that you have to pay for power-ups, which is really annoying. I obviously don't do that because I just don't really rate Smart Loop in general. Because look at this, 0.2 repins per pin. That's crap. It's crap. It's so dire. The point of Smart Loop, though, is that for your evergreen content, for your core content, cornerstone content, which for me is blogging pins, business pins, they can just be being pumped out every so often with a decent interval between them, and it's just one less thing to worry about. So I only use Smart Loop. This is purely for my own blog post from my website. This is not for, oh, don't use the Smart Loop function for looping other people's pins, if that makes sense. I mean, there is a video. I don't even know if I've watched it because it's really simple. All you do is, first of all, if we go in and edit the loop, you can have as many loops as you want, but obviously you have a certain amount of pins you're allowed to pin each month. So I'd probably suggest only having 2 loops max. And really, I think 1 loop is enough. Just name it something obvious, so blogging tips, just so that I know exactly what it is. And then the default boards you want to pin to. So this means that when you add a pin to your blogging tips loop, it will pin to every single board in your board list. So among here, I've got lots of group boards. I've got some of my own boards. We'll take that out because that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, I might just take everything out and start again because I think I've added new boards. Yeah, there we go. That's better. And then you can either loop all year round, which is exactly what I want to do because all of this is evergreen content, or you can loop every year between a certain amount of time. So if you've got, like, maybe for me, for Plastic Free July, I would want to, if I had lots and lots of posts around that, I might want to loop every year in July. And it will just automatically loop every July. You would just set your schedule like this. But for the purpose of this, I don't need to do that. You could also do the same for Christmas, whatever. I mean, you know what seasonal means. Next, you move on to your Smart Loop schedule. So it gives you 2 options, but you don't have to stick to these. It's just that if you pick your core content, it'll obviously loop a lot more than if it's a niche topic. But actually, funnily, I'm looping a lot more than you would for your core content. And it's still not really doing very much. So my custom schedule was 6 times a day, which is quite a lot actually. I'll maybe change it. Yeah, I will. I'll check. No, I'll stick to custom schedule. Yeah. And then these are the times that you can edit this. So you can say 5 times a day, however much, and then the time to wait before publishing the same pin to a different board. So for me, I've got 12 days, but you can maximize it to 60 days to 6 months if you really want to. Yeah. And the time to loop through all of your pins. This just means that in 4 months, every 4 months, you want to be looping through all of the pins within your Smart Loop pot. And I think I have about, we'll have a look in a minute. I don't have very many in my Smart Loop pot. Yeah, I've only got 22. So that's going to take 4 months to loop through these. But I've got 10 boards within there, so that makes it 221. Yeah. So you can get really clever with this. I think the key with looping is to have a lot of pins and really focused boards. And I'm just not seeing a lot of success from it, but it's probably because I really don't pay much attention to it either. I spend more time on tribes and group boards instead. So yes, I think that's it. I know we finished a little bit early, which